Hey, how are you all? It's good to see you today. I'm so excited to be here to talk about how to make networking not suck, right? And how introverts can harness the power of LinkedIn and network their way to their dream job. So let's get into it. All right. So have you ever heard this, right? Found yourself saying it to, either to yourself or to others that I'm an introvert, so I suck at networking, and you have to be an extrovert to be good at it, right? Have you heard that? Either somebody saying it, or you saying it in your head. The stories that we tell ourselves, they create our understanding of who we are and how we're going to fit into the world, right? Because we're born into this world of circumstance and expectations that end up prescripting those stories before we can even write them for ourselves. Because so much of that narrative that's in our head ends up defining what we will do, what we won't do, how we feel about what we can do or maybe cannot accomplish. It really ends up shaping our dreams. And it's easy to get attached to those stories because they form this big thing that we call our identity, right? Our sense of self, our relationships, or even the roles that we play in society. And we often just accept those stories without doing the work to understand them or even question them. But what's really wicked cool is that we have the power to change that, right? So this is me. And this is the stuff that matters most to me. So my name is Maryann Lombardi. I'm a career coach. I'm the founder of Find Your Fit. And I've spent 20 plus years working for governments and institutions and brands, bringing together billion-dollar partners and leveraging their resources to support thousands of people to get jobs, to access free therapy, and to grow their businesses. And now I channel that experience into helping people build their professional brand and access the hidden job market. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how you can channel your introversion to build a supportive and engaged network, right? Those relationships, and leverage LinkedIn to support you in that process so you can find your dream job. Now, make sure you connect with me on LinkedIn, and, my LinkedIn's right down there. And let's get started. All right. So myth versus truth. Let's bust a little bit of this extrovert is better myth. If you have internalized the story that introverts are bad at networking, and you know that you are an introvert, or people have always told you you're an introvert, then you're going to think you are bad at networking. Now, that's a terrible way to start networking, if you already think you're bad at it. And the reality is, whether you're an introvert, whether you're an extrovert or an ambivert, it's like a combo of the two, that doesn't define your skill. It doesn't define your success at networking. Anybody can be good or bad at it. The clarity of your goals and your commitment to developing that engaged and supportive network, those relationships, that's what makes you good or bad at it. So your status as an introvert is going to shape how you network, but it has nothing to do with your ability to succeed at it. So how do we move past that narrative? First and foremost, we've got to question the story, right? We've got to interrogate the stories that we tell ourselves. That's an essential step in achieving those career growth goals. So to do this, we first have to ask ourselves, how many of the stories that I tell myself are told to me, or how many of them are created by me? So where did you hear that introverts are bad at networking story? Did you come to that conclusion on your own, or did you hear it or learn it from somebody else? And we view networking as the playground for the extrovert. And we measure our skill and our ability against that outgoing, talkative, and confident, those behaviors that we see from that more extroverted social set of people. And so we assume that extrovert model is the right way, the best way to build relationships. And therefore, our job is to conform to that. But that's not true. The extrovert model is just one way to approach that. It's not the only way to do it. And the truth is, we live in this world that is defined by men with long held standards and expectations and stories that are created by men. We have internalized those stories and we live by them. And networking and the business orientation it captures has long been the purview of men because our business world is designed around their needs. It's designed around their behaviors, around their style. But just because it's been done one way doesn't mean it is the only way. Now, this is not an excuse, right? This is just a reality. It is a context for the business work world environment that we exist in. But the truth is, even though the business world may have been designed around the behaviors and needs of men, women have been developing relationships since the dawn of time, right? We have been supporting each other. We've been excelling in a world that wasn't designed for us. We have been creating these informal communities of support long before Carl Jung dropped these terms like introvert and extrovert. He's like the psychiatrist who, I don't know, invented those words, right? Or coined those words in the early 1900s. So relationship building is our strength, right? Introvert, extrovert, notwithstanding, it doesn't matter. We're good at it. So you can reject the idea that introverts are disadvantaged when networking, and you can ditch that false narrative, rewrite a new story, and build your networking strategy around your unique skills and circumstances. That is the power that you have. So how are we going to do this? You have to take a little action, right? It's all about taking action. You don't have to network like anyone else. You get to decide what works best for you. So for example, you can find informal opportunities to connect, right? That's essential. There's no need to get a lunch on the calendar, for instance, if you know that the VP is in line at Starbucks every morning at 7, right? Go to Starbucks every morning at 7, right? You can also arrive 5 minutes early to meetings and start a conversation. You can walk to the train with somebody you know who's going your way, right? Relationship building is never a one-size-fits-all proposition. You also don't have to play golf, right? Decide what you want to do. Maybe it's opera, pickleball, wine tasting, trendy food. I don't know. Invite a colleague along and do something for fun. It's a wonderful way to network with people. The other thing to think about is that you don't have to do it alone. You can meet a few work friends and head to a company party with them. You can put a group together to go do something. So you're not on your own working a room, right? You can do this in pairs. You can network in pairs. You can work together to make it easier for yourself. Okay. So the next piece of this, after you've questioned your story, it's important to learn what your specific strengths and weaknesses are. I used to describe myself as a closet introvert because I love people, but I don't necessarily love them all in the same room, right? At the same time. I prefer a meaningful conversation with a few to working this big room with the many, right? But I do it because I need to for work and because it makes my life and my work better when I do it. And because, like I said, I love people. So my career has always required a lot of this social engagement and community building and event creation and partnership management, all this kind of stuff. And in the past, I'd come home from a full day of all of that, close the door, stare at a wall, right? Because I have to process, I have to decompress, and if the extro conversation ever came up with peers and colleagues, nobody would believe that I was an introvert. So when I was younger, that disbelief fed the pressure to perform as an extrovert, right? To fit into the mold of someone who would have the kind of visible outgoing roles that I always did, but pretending to be something that you are not is a bad idea, right? No matter how much pressure you feel, if you don't know who you are, it's worth finding out to avoid that charade because it's exhausting, right? We need to learn to work with our strengths and our weaknesses, okay? Not against them. So how do we do that? We have to take action. So we've got to identify our strengths and our weaknesses. So extroverts are often great at talking with people, right? They're outgoing. They appear confident in social situations. Now, that doesn't mean that they are necessarily good at networking, though, because networking isn't about being outgoing. Certainly, outgoing people who are comfortable talking to other people can be good at networking. But if they have no intent, no strategy, or not good at developing relationships, don't know what to say, or say the wrong things, it isn't going to help them reach their goals. So one of the weaknesses that extroverts have is their lack of planning and organization. They talk to so many people that they often don't think strategically about who to talk to, follow up with people consistently. So their confidence and their comfort in these social situations lead them to wing it. And guess what happens? They build these wide networks, but not very deep. Now, my point is not to say that any personality type is better or worse at networking. The fact is that everyone comes to networking with their strengths and weaknesses. Everybody has room to grow and everyone can succeed because networking is a quality over quantity. It is, activity, right? It is about the quality of your conversations rather than the number of people that you talk to or the number of people you have in your network. Okay. So the first thing that you have to do is reflect on your strengths, and your weaknesses. Okay. So once you've questioned your story, once you've identified your strengths and your weaknesses, it's time to plan ahead. And as an introvert, when networking in person or online, preparation is your best friend, right? It's great. You can research the events. You can research the people beforehand. You can plan what you want to accomplish and who you want to connect with. You can prepare your power statement, what I like to call your power statement. It's the answer to the what do you do question, right? You can prepare any other questions and answers that you want to either ask or you think you will be asked at events. All of this is going to reduce your anxiety and it's going to boost your confidence because you know what to expect, you know what to say. You're going to be less likely to get caught off guard. And it's also going to improve your communication, right? Because if you create a clear structure or a roadmap for your conversations, it can make those interactions with people feel much more manageable. This preparation, this planning ahead, is also going to help you lean into your strengths, right? Part of those strengths are listening. It's also reflective thinking. So preparation allows you to focus on that listening, on that understanding, and contributing valuable insight during those conversations because you're already familiar with the topics of discussion. And finally, in planning ahead, it's important to pace yourself, right? You can work your plan and permit yourself to leave or stop when you've accomplished your goal, no matter how important the event is or what peer pressure you might be feeling. Doing more than you can or doing more than you want to doesn't make you better at networking, right? Your strategy and your intentionality does. Your ability to develop meaningful relationships in business and life is going to lead you to build that thriving career full of opportunity. None of that requires you to stay longer at events or talk to more people than you are prepared to. So your plan provides you those boundaries, right? And then you just give yourself permission to be like, yep, nope, I'm out, right? When you've met your goal, I'm out. So how are we going to take action on the planning ahead, right? You're going to create that plan. I know it sounds kind of obvious, but it's true. You want to create a plan for who you want to connect with, what you want to accomplish, and then permit yourself to peace out when you're done, okay? The other thing that you're going to do is you're going to prepare answers to those common questions. So you're less likely to be caught off guard when somebody asks you, hey, who are you? What do you do? You know the answer to that question, okay? So let's take a second and look at another myth. Check this one out. LinkedIn and networking, it's only useful for people who are getting a job, right? Many people fall for this myth about LinkedIn, believing that it's just solely for job seekers. And all you have to do is create a profile, which is just a digital copy of your resume, and you're good to go, right? In reality, LinkedIn is this powerful tool for developing ongoing professional development, right? Personal branding and networking. Users often misuse it by connecting indiscriminately with everybody, right? With too many people, and they neglect to create and engage with content. And they don't often personalize their interactions. But effective use of LinkedIn is going to involve actively participating in discussions with people and sharing that valuable content and building meaningful connections rather than just chasing those connections, right? And like jacking up your connection count. That's not going to help you. So understanding these myths and leveraging LinkedIn strategically is what's going to unlock its full potential for your career growth and for your professional networking. So let's talk about how we want to use it. It's important to realize that 70% of networking happens online now. This is awesome for you if you're an introvert, right? This is great. Online networking is your playground and it's geared towards your strengths. So I want you to keep that in mind. It's a very powerful position for you to be in as an introvert, okay? So networking is particularly great for introverts because it allows you to engage in these professional relationships within a comfortable environment. So unlike in-person networking events, LinkedIn is able to provide you flexibility, right? You can carefully craft messages and responses, and that reduces the pressure of what happens in real-time conversation, right? Because you can read, you can think, you can respond, right? Which you often don't get that opportunity in person. And the setting also enables you to reflect on your thoughts and contribute in a more thoughtful and meaningful way. You've got the time, you've got the space, you can research and connect with people who share similar interests and similar professional goals, which makes the networking process much more targeted and also just less overwhelming because of that sense of control. And it also offers you the opportunity to manage your social interactions at your own pace. You can choose when to engage, how frequently, right? So you can manage that social exhaustion that often can come with the face-to-face networking, okay? So this flexibility combined with that reach of LinkedIn, right? Because you can get to anyone almost anywhere, is going to empower you. It empowers introverts to expand their networks while also staying in their comfort zone. So how are we going to take advantage of this? How are we going to take action? The first thing that you are going to do is you got to keep your profile up to date. This is essential because it presents your professional brand. Like that's what your profile is. It's going to showcase your current skills, your experience, your achievements, and it showcases them to those potential employers or clients or collaborators. Okay. So an up-to-date profile is going to enhance that credibility and that visibility. So you're easier to search. And regularly updating your profiles also reflects your active engagement in your field. So it makes it easier for people to understand who you are and what you do and what your expertise is. Okay. So building and maintaining that strong professional brand is super important, whether you are getting a job, needing a job, or just maintaining your professional development. And it builds this trust and credibility. To do this effectively, you got to know the impact that you deliver, right? And your impact is the change that you deliver for your employee. It's the results of your actions at work. Okay. You need to understand your impact so you can tell that story to somebody else, because you want your future employer to understand, right? You want them to imagine, be able to picture how having you on their team is going to make them better, right? Their company better, them better, how it's going to solve their problems, whatever those are. So it's our job as the potential employee to paint that picture, right? We want it to be clear what we bring to the table. So when an opportunity comes up, your network can say, oh my God, you know who would be great for that job? You. Why? Because they know who you are and the impact that you deliver. The other thing that you need to do is you got to create and engage with content. LinkedIn is crucial for job seekers because it helps you establish that expertise. And you can share relevant articles, you can write thoughtful posts and comment on discussions, right? That demonstrates your knowledge and your passion in the field. So regularly contributing to LinkedIn positions you as an active and informed member of your professional community. So let's just recap really, really quickly. No personality type is better or worse at networking. Everybody comes to it with strengths and weaknesses, and everybody has room to grow, okay? To move past the narrative that introverts are bad at networking and succeed, you need to question the stories that you're telling yourself and identify what your strengths and weaknesses are and plan ahead and pace yourself. Also remember that 70% of networking is happening online, which is awesome for you because you're an introvert and you like online. LinkedIn is this holistic platform for your professional growth, right? So if you don't build relationships, engage in that professional brand that you're building now, it won't be there to help you when you do need a job if you don't need it right now. So make sure you keep your profile updated, identify your impact, and create and engage with content. So, wow, that was a lot. Like we just went through a lot, okay? What if online networking still seems intimidating for you? How do you navigate that? Well, it's okay if it feels, first of all, I think it's important to recognize that if it's intimidating, that's okay, right? Discomfort doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, right? All discomfort is giving you a little notch that says, wow, this is important, right? It's time for me to get out of my comfort zone a little bit. So if it feels intimidating for introverts, take a second, stop, breathe, and acknowledge, wow, this is a little intimidating. And then step forward anyway, right? Because confidence is really all about, it's not about like removing your self-doubt. It's about taking action despite whatever doubts come up, right? Whether it's intimidating or not. And to build your confidence and get better at this, you have to just take action. That's all you have to do. You don't have to take perfect action. You don't have to do everything right all the time. You just have to do something. So stop, breathe, say, yes, this is intimidating and hard, and then act anyway. Okay. How does it look to post and network during work hours? Yeah, that's a good question. Well, one, it depends on whether or not there are rules within the organization you work for, right? Like, what are the boundaries? What are the rules for where you work, right? Sometimes there are very clear boundaries that they don't want you to be posting during work hours for whatever reason, depending on the kind of job that you have. A lot of them are not that strict, though, in that kind of way. And quite honestly, there are a lot of tools that you can use to do the posting for you, right? So it'll optimize to post at certain times during the day, even if you've created that content before or after, right? But I don't think it necessarily looks bad, because it's important to think that you are representing your company. And so sometimes by representing your company, by being online, and I'm not suggesting you should be in LinkedIn for 5 hours a day instead of doing your work, but being able to be a representative of your company online, entering into conversations about your own industry and what's happening in your industry and all of that kind of stuff, not only benefits you, but it also benefits the company, right? So I think it's worth thinking about it from that perspective, as opposed to, oh no, I don't want my company seeing that I am posting on LinkedIn. But the first thing I would do is check to make sure whether or not there are any rules, that your company has put out about that, and then follow those rules. But that's a good question. Another thing I think that comes up for a lot of people is, what do I post about? How do I know what to post about, right? And sometimes that can feel awkward, but my first suggestion is to not think so much about it and just post what's on your mind. Right? Because a lot of times that we're trying to be perfect about what we post. So it's good to start by just engaging with people and get a sense of what other people are posting and get comfortable before you start posting your own content. Do I have any tricks to help an introvert that freezes at a networking event? Yeah, that's a good question. My first tip is to breathe. Right? Because often what happens when you freeze is right after that, it's panic. And if you freeze and panic, you're like going down, you're going down the slide, right? So what we want to do is we want to slow you down instead of speed you up, right? So often if you're going to freeze, take a second, breathe. Usually what I recommend for people is to breathe in twice and to breathe out 4 times, right? So you breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, and then bring up a comment that you have already rehearsed, right? So this is where the preparation comes in. If you have what we call a power statement, which is the answer to what do you do? If you have about 3 questions that you can ask that are really good questions of somebody else, so you get them talking and have those things memorized. If you freeze, right, breathe in 2, out 4, and then ask one of those questions, right? That's a really good way to start, because you can put the attention back on them to start talking, which gives you a little bit more room to breathe, to then get back into the conversation, all right? So make sure you have at least 3 questions that you have in the can that you can just bring out, right? But do the breathing part first. It really helps. I mean, that's great in general when you get stressed out, is to do breathe in and breathe out twice as long as you breathed in, right? 4, 8, 3, 6, that kind of thing. So if you're transitioning to another career totally different from your current job, suggest to post and how often. So I'm going to shift on you just a touch. If you are transitioning to another career, I wouldn't worry so much. When it comes to posting, I wouldn't worry about how much and how often you post. The key is to be consistent with your posting. If you can only post once a week, just post once a week, that's fine, but be consistent at it. Often the challenge is people post like 3 times a week and then they don't post for 3 months, right? Consistency is the key when it comes to posting and building up that engagement with people. When you're moving into another career, the key is to start shifting what it is you're talking about to where you want to go. Often people tend to post or talk about what's in the past as opposed to posting and talking about what is their future. Right? This is often a challenge on LinkedIn in general. What you want to be doing is you want to be looking forward. Your strategy is all about where you want to go, not necessarily just where you have been. So if you're moving into like ed tech for something and you've been a teacher and educator for a long time, instead of talking about just what you've done as an educator, we want to talk about how your experience as an educator can inform what is happening in ed tech. You don't have to be an expert in ed tech yet, but we want to make sure your conversation is tying you forward, not anchoring you backwards. So Jacqueline, if you want to talk more about that, reach out to me. I've talked to a lot of people about this transitioning as how to shift the narrative, how to shift their professional brand so it's looking like the future, not just representing their past. I hope that helps. LinkedIn has changed a lot. Can you give some example of direct messages asking? Yeah, the big thing about direct messages is authenticity is a big piece of it, because one of the things that has been happening is that there's just a lot more, spamming than there used to be in the DMs, and there's a lot more sales that is happening in the DMs. And so I think when it used to be a couple of years ago, much more informal and less of the salesy stuff that you would see Facebook. Like Facebook has turned into just sales. Like Facebook is very hard in the DMs. It's just everybody like trying to sell you something. LinkedIn is slowly kind of getting the uptick on sales in DMs. So if you want to ask somebody to connect, the most important thing is to be very specific about how you connected with them. I mean, how you found out about them, right? So you don't sound spammy. A lot of times people just hit connect, but they don't add a DM, which is a really bad idea. I mean, I don't connect with anybody who does not actually write me a message and says, oh, hey, I saw you on the quick commuting thing. Thank you so much for your time. I learned X about your talk. I would love to connect. I'm like, absolutely. Clearly, you connected with me in some way, you know who the heck I am, you gave me a little nugget that you're paying attention. And I'm like, sure, I'm absolutely going to connect with you. So what's most important is to make it authentic. Make sure you actually care, right? Like you've looked at their content. Maybe they had something in a post that really registered with you. And you say, hey, I saw your post from last week and it really made me think a little bit more about that work-life balance. I appreciated your opinion. I would love to connect with you, right? That's how you make contact with people and ask for connection requests. So it doesn't feel like you're spamming, because people are a lot more sensitive now about just connecting with everybody. And in general, there's a whole strategy to how you should be connecting with people, because a lot of times people just try to connect with absolutely everybody, which is a really, really bad option. You really want to connect with people, again, that are reflecting where you want to go. So it's not like you would be connecting on Instagram or Facebook with everybody and your mom, right? You don't want to do that on LinkedIn. You want to be connecting with people who are moving you forward on your professional goals, not just from your past. And again, if you connect with me on LinkedIn and DM me, I can give you a lot more specifics on that strategy. Strategy is a big thing, right? Like a lot of times that just having a strategy makes you feel, it's like that plan that we talked about, like having a plan. Having a strategy is really going to help you navigate how to function on the platform. So it doesn't feel like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say, right? Like the strategy is the key. So thank you. Thank you, everybody. It was wonderful. Again, connect with me and I look forward to seeing you on LinkedIn.